experiencing the divine. If you are a pagan, you may, well, others, such as uninformed Christians or ignorant atheists, they would wonder about this. You know, oftentimes I've heard these same people in our circles, they claim that paganism is nothing more than atheism in disguise. Are you cold, bud? I'll let you go back in. Excuse me. So where were we? Yes. They claim that paganism is nothing more than atheism in disguise. And to be honest, I take offense to this, you know, because it's completely wrong, and it's complete horseshit, in my opinion. And I'll explain why. You see, in our traditional European worldview, we certainly believe that we have a spirit, a soul, and it goes on. In our case, we believe in reincarnation. We believe, you know, that we are our ancestors and we are also our descendants. Do we need any complicated rituals? Do we need any mumbo jumbo led by a cult-like Asatru group to experience the divine? No, certainly not. I don't mean to offend anybody if they're Asatru, but I suppose it's a good way to meet people, but I've never been a part of any group, and I honestly don't plan on doing so. You know, I've also heard these same people that call us disguised atheists, I've heard them say, you know, that there's so little known about our distant ancestors' traditions, and this is true to a degree. After all, I mean, Christianity, it's Christianity's fault. Christianity took over Europe in a very violent fashion over many centuries. Of course, it first took hold in Rome, and then it spread over the following centuries to more, I guess you could say, urban areas. Actually, the term pagan itself is related to the Latin term paganus, paganus. I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce it. But that term was a term that the Romans used to describe people who inhabited rural regions. The peasants, the farmers, the hunters. And this is where our traditional worldview, it held the firmest, it held the strongest. They resisted the Christianization the longest. And on up into the Scandinavia, and actually the Baltic states, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, they were the last to be Christianized. I believe it was in the 11th and 12th century, maybe the 13th. It was in the 1200s. I get confused how they align it, but it was in the 1200s. You know, and it was extremely rural places, far away from main civilization, large urban areas. And I have a question though. We do still have some pagan rituals. Since it's almost Christmas time, I'd like to ask any of you, how many of you are putting up a Christmas tree? I'd say a lot of you are. And if you're a Christian, this is a very pagan tradition. After all, the tree itself is said to represent Yggdrasil, and it can also be said to represent the placenta. The lights these here, or the garland that you wrap around your Christmas tree, can be said to represent the umbilical cord. You see, pagan traditions survived, and in fact Christianity incorporated them. You can think back to Easter or Ulster. That's another pagan holiday. Halloween is a pagan holiday. Although I know there are some Christians who frown upon the idea of celebrating Halloween. You see, the only way that Christianity was able to take hold in Europe was by adopting a ton, to be honest, of pagan traditions. Catholicism and Eastern Orthodox, the Orthodox Christian churches, I guess that's two of the three big denominations, they revere saints. And a lot of these saints, they are basically our deities in disguise, our heroes. And they've been subverted with Christian saints. And if you want to learn more about this, read the books that Varg or Stefan Svetkovich, I can't pronounce his name, I'm probably butchering it, and Vegard Solheim have written. His book, Our Traditions, I'm actually about to finish it just now. It's very informative about how these traditions still live on today. You see, the church, when they were experiencing the stiff resistance of the pagans in Europe, and perhaps the, missionaries, they had suggested conceding and accepting some of these pagan traditions into their faith, because it was the only way that our ancestors would even possibly entertain accepting a foreign faith. And the church begrudgingly, I've read that the popes throughout the centuries, they did not want to do this because they view it as heathenry and therefore satanic. You know, but eventually, I guess the church realized that this is the only way to get their subjects to accept their foreign faith. So yeah, our traditions, they are still alive, although many of them have been forgotten, mainly by, I didn't know these things until a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago. And going back to experiencing the divine, let me show you how I myself experience the divine. Now you see, this is how I experience the divine, by getting out in nature. I don't need a church or a cathedral or even a Greek temple to feel close to the divine. Because after all, I can appreciate some of the temples the ancient Greeks built, the Romans. I can even appreciate some of the architecture of the cathedrals, even though most of them were built upon our sacred groves. But above all, Mother Nature is the supreme architect. She creates everything. You see here, this osprey built its nest for its family. She's feeding her young. Right in the middle of civilization, nature always wins. Even when I catch a fish, I feel close to the divine every time I do. It's completely natural. It's wonderful. I think this is one of the big problems with our race, is that so many are divorced from this natural way of life. I can see the divine in these forms of life, these fish here. I can see the divine in the river. After all, I've read before that Doc Holliday once said that out in the wild he came to know the many gods. And I think this is a very deep statement. You can see it in all the trees. It's just beautiful, you know. I've always loved reptiles and amphibians when I was a kid. I wanted to be a herpetologist. You see this water snake swimming along here. I followed him around. He was probably frightened of me, but I wasn't going to bother him. I love snakes. And unfortunately, due to Abrahamism, I think they've gotten a bad rap. Snakes are very important in our traditional worldview, after all. You know, I see the divine whenever I see wonderful views like this. The valley, the rocks, the mountains. It's truly wonderful. The waterfall. You see, I think, as the antlered one has said before, I think that our race's true nature is paganism. That even if we had no recollection whatsoever of our past deities and such things, you take that away, and you take away Christianity and atheism, our people would revert to paganism because it is our biospirit, our biological inclination to see the world in this manner. You see right here a fine musk turtle. They call them a stink pot also. It's amazing to me seeing how the rivers, the mountains, they change over millennia. You see in our worldview, in our traditional European worldview, there is no beginning and there is no end. Everything is cyclical. It's like a circle, you know. And a lot of the pagan rituals that our distant ancestors celebrated reflected this. Seasons change. Fall becomes winter. Winter becomes spring and rebirth. Spring becomes summer. And it was repeated on and on. It's the never-ending cycle. So I think our souls, our spirits, are the same way. So I'm going to hush now. And I'm going to let you enjoy this last little bit of scenery. I'd like to thank you all for watching. Have a great night. Bye-bye.